Kirby Honda of Westport. I've got a third-party call of an elderly woman in the restroom who's stating that she needs to inject herself with something or she's going to have a serious medical problem. It's unknown what her condition is that would require the medication. She seems to be alert and conscious at this time, but very upset.
The fight or flight response is a chemical reaction to a particular stimulus. When a call like this comes through the loudspeaker at Westport EMS, adrenaline is released, which increases your heart rate, your respirations, and your brain activity. As an emergency responder, we're trained to respond with both fight and flight, getting to the scene as quick as possible and ready to fight whatever we might find when we arrive. But regardless of what I have to do that night, I have to make the priority my patient, because in reality, that person needs my help a lot more than anything else I might be doing at that moment. One call above all stands out above the rest to me. It was 9 o'clock on a Wednesday night, and I still had to go home and cram for a biology exam, prepare a history presentation, and write an entire essay in Chinese. But, as my luck would have it, at 8:58, a priority call comes through for the cardiac arrest of an elderly male. In that moment, everything else escaped my mind. I ran down to the ambulance and prepared anything that we might need. On the way to the scene, I was the senior EMT in the back of the ambulance, which I realize might sound pretty odd considering I'm only 17 years old, but regardless, the pressure was on me. I pulled out everything that we might need for the resuscitation: the bag valve mask, the oral airways, the nasal airways, and the automated external defibrillator to restart the man's heart. I was filled with this adrenaline, my flight or fight reaction taking over. I was prepared to run my very first code and save a life. But by the time we arrived on scene and I opened up the back doors of the ambulance, exposing myself to the dark, empty parking lot filled only with the flashing lights of emergency vehicles, all I saw in front of me was a figure underneath a sheet. In the other corner of the parking lot was a group of people, huddled together, some of them crying, others trying desperately to comfort those that were clearly upset. It was apparent, even from the back of my ambulance 50 feet away, that the man was dead and that there was nothing that we could do. However, I tried desperately to find any sign of life in this man. With no success in that, it became apparent to me the difference between a life or death situation. Regardless of my grades on that exam or that Chinese essay, my life was going to go on, and I wasn't going to have to even remotely experience the pain that that man's family had to be feeling. I'm a student, as you well know, at one of perhaps the most competitive schools. And before this year, I fed into the stereotype of the typical grade grubber, who would give anything for a good grade and a gold star. Teens these days constantly have college shoved down their throat, making the motivation behind anything and everything about getting into that Ivy League university. I remember the first time my teacher asked me where I wanted to go to college and what I was thinking about doing for the rest of my life. I was in 4th grade. In this society, adolescents are pressured about the future instead of simply enjoying the present. And kids rarely have opportunities to gain any perspective on the outside world because we're isolated by this small suburban bubble. While students might participate in school sports or clubs, they rarely gain any exposure into the outside world. And this makes it pretty difficult to comprehend the insignificance between a B+ and an A-. But I'm not going to stand here and pretend that college and future and jobs are irrelevant to me, because that would simply be a lie. Instead, and I'm also not suggesting that students should slack off and have little to no regard for their education. I'm simply suggesting that there must be some offer that finds a balance between academics and enjoyment. And I'm obviously not encouraging all of you to go out and become certified as emergency responders, because quite honestly, it's not the most stress-reducing way to spend your time. Instead, I'm asking all of you that have ever cried or thought of yourself as less valuable because of a bad grade to put it in the past and realize how truly lucky we are. Find something that you love and that you're passionate about. Maybe it's something that you're great at, or maybe it's something that you're not. Regardless, you need to expose yourself to the lives that other people are experiencing and put your own life into perspective. And hopefully, eventually, you can remind yourself, there but for the grace of God, go I. Thank you very much.